example, the BBC came along this year, and the BBC was a fantastic win for us to have there because actually we probably don't think of them as a digital business, and yet every way we consume their content today is digital. So they have huge digital teams, but all the way through to smaller businesses and smaller agencies similar to my own. So it's a fantastic initiative. We're growing it, we're doing more, and yeah, really excited to invite your students to future events. Also, I think on the next slide, we have got a podcast that is launching soon called Behind the Future. We filmed about 12 episodes at the moment, and they're going to start dropping in the next couple of weeks. I reckon mid-April, we're going to start releasing. As much as this is aimed at students, this is also aimed at parents. You will love it. Or teachers, if we have any teachers on the call today. The format of the sessions they're kind of half an hour to an hour long podcast episodes. And it's myself and a student interviewing someone that works in digital. And similar to the type of speakers we've had at the event, there are all different stages in their career. They've got different stories to tell. And honestly, the ones we've done so far have been so interesting and so insightful and give such an idea of the type of environment that young people can expect to find if they join our sector. So I think that was all to say on Aspiration Digital, but just thank you if that's how you ended up here. And if it isn't, then please come and follow us because there'll be more content coming. And I'm going to hand over to Julian that's going to tell us a bit more about what is digital.
Thank you, Becky. Well, my name's Julian Barrett. I'm the creative director at a digital agency. And to parents and children alike, I'd say I'm very lucky. I think I've got a great job. I'm dealing with incredibly creative and talented people, and we're using all the tools available to us to create interesting things mostly from a marketing sort of perspective at the moment. So we've already heard that the digital called a digital sector. We've heard it called a digital industry. And so I really just wanted to give a little bit of context for the rest of your evening tonight about what that really means. Because what is digital? What is the industry? What is the sector? So if we could go to my first slide, you'll see maybe some non-digital items, right? So these are the Lego people. And this reminds me of when I was going through my careers advice. And it seemed, and parents, you may remember this, or, pupils, you may recognize this yourself as well, but it felt like there was all these specific careers and it was all about me finding where I fitted into the world exactly. And most of them so my careers teacher might say, I will be a policeman or a business person or a nurse or a farmer. They always seem to have these uniforms because I think they were just easy for the careers advisor to grasp for. So it's not that, right? So it's not these specific jobs. That's not what we're talking about tonight. Could we take a look at the next slide, please? Because actually, this is a magic 8-ball. It's used to tell the future. It's not incredibly reliable, but most of the options that come up if you've never seen it before are something like ask me later or don't bet on it. And that's because we're at a very interesting time now where the future is incredibly difficult to see, completely different to when I was at school, when, those jobs were more predictable and more established. And why is the future more difficult to see? Well, if we take a look at the next slide, please. It's because it's going incredibly fast. So the nature of technological development at the moment is, and you will have heard of AI and all these sorts of terms, they're all sort of feeding into each other and creating technological advances at an accelerating rate. And so it's very, very difficult, probably impossible even for industry experts to see where this is going to go. So thinking about what I'm going to do as a job isn't necessarily that easy. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is a beetle. And really what I want you to think about is the beetle's the job, right? And the life of the beetle is the career of the beetle. And if you're trying to pick exactly what to be, this is not what digital's all about at the moment. It's far more open. There are far more options available to you. If we go to the next slide, please. Digital is much more like this. It's absolutely everywhere. It supports everything we do. And so what does that mean for you in your career choices or your children's career choices? It means that digital isn't a thing that you kind of bet on, but actually, if you're taking an active interest, if you're pursuing some subject choices, or you're looking at courses or interviews that, know that there will be a digital component, and the more comfortable you are with that, the more likely you are to be useful whatever happens in the future next. Next slide, please. I mean, I say the future, but this is obviously right now, well, in the past. But I didn't realize that we couldn't hear each other tonight, but I was going to ask people to spot like all the digital careers that are in here. And like, it doesn't stop, right from the tech repairs in the background to the sat navs in the cars, to the systems that run the underground timings, to the machines that make the stitching on the clothes. Like, digital is utterly ingrained in every part of our human experience now. So I just wanted to share that with you because it's worth remembering that the options are open. It's not quite so closed down as that. And so now back to Becky. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thought I'd take you through this bit on the UK digital industry. So actually, I've just been really fortunate to be in a position that I've been appointed onto the government's Digital Skills Council, which is super exciting. And the government's got a big remit around helping empower digital skills. And these next few slides will probably give you an idea of why. So the sector itself contributes 227 billion in revenue into the country. I mean, it's absolutely humongous, and it employs 2.6 million people. So we're not talking about a small sector here. And this one's quite an interesting one when we're thinking about your children starting a career. The average salary is 37% higher than the UK national average. So it's a sector that also pays pretty well, which is a good thing to hear. On the next slide as well, from a location perspective, now we all know that location has become less of a barrier since COVID. We've got a lot of virtual jobs, and in the digital sector in particular, there's a huge amount of virtual jobs. Now, I don't think I would advocate that the first best step out of school or university would be to jump into a virtual job. I think there's a lot to be said about having a hybrid or a job where you can go in to be in person. But actually, this map I thought was brilliant to show the hubs that we've got. This is not about just being in London. You can see the different regional opportunities here, and actually areas like Manchester and Glasgow are absolutely thriving sectors for digital. So this is not about having to be in the capital to be able to work in digital. On the next slide, please. So what's it like for young people in the sector? Now, I am massively biased, but it's amazing. I absolutely love our sector. Our culture is full of fun and vibrant opportunities and companies where caring about people is at the heart, because actually in a digital business, as much as your product is digital, the only way the product happens is people. And they're very much around how do we create cultures and places people love to work? How do we look after people? How do we make sure that mental health is a priority and that we've got flexible working options, etc. So in that sense, the culture is fantastic. Average starting salaries, we talked about salary already, but yeah, 33,000 in more of a tech role, 27,000 in media. So again, a good opportunity and a springboard to start from. Opportunities to work across the world. Digital jobs can take you all different places. One of the ladies we interviewed for the podcast the other day is relatively young in her career, working for AWS, which is part of Amazon, their web services. And her first role with Amazon was an internship, a paid internship, where she got sent to Luxembourg for 3 months. And that's where she got to learn about how to work at Amazon, the type of career opportunities, but also got to completely change culture and learn about working away from home. So many opportunities. There's also the chance to be self-employed. Again, that might not be something for day one, that might be further on in the career, but also it is something you can start straight away. Actually, some of your children right now could be running a mini side hustle. They could be starting to do something. And actually, businesses like ours, I know in particular my agency, we encourage our team members to have a side hustle, because as much as we want them focused in the day on the work that they're doing, if they can have a project, something that they're working on that's got a commercial interest, where they're learning a bit more about that commerciality and how to think in that way, that only benefits our team and our clients, for them to be able to think a bit more strategically. And the industry is constantly changing. AI is obviously a huge disruptor for us right now, but disruptor in a good way. It's clearing out a lot of those day-to-day mundane tasks, and it's creating space for human brilliance, for us to think. And I think interestingly at the conference 2 weeks ago, a lot of students were really worried about AI, and it was a topic that kept coming up from students saying, I don't think there'll be any jobs left. There absolutely will. It is one of the best times to be joining the sector right now. There are things that will be turning to AI, but the most exciting, interesting, innovative jobs are going to need humans. When we look at what the sector is made up of, we've got our agencies. So that's the type of business that I run. So that's where we're doing work for clients, and that could be marketing, creative, digital tech. We've got our big tech companies. So some logos there that I'm sure you recognize, some of them. We've got private sector brands that are huge digital businesses. We think of things like Manchester United, the football club. That's a huge digital business as much as a physical business. And then our public sector brands. It was so interesting having the army there actually last week or 2 weeks ago at our event, and actually hearing about how much of what's happening in the army is digital now. So as Julian said, it's everywhere. On the next slide, please. Just to touch on the UK digital skills gap, like there is a skills gap that is causing a problem, and it's actually a big focus for the Digital Skills Council that I've just joined. We have 52% of the labour force currently missing digital basics around safety, productivity, and more, and that is causing an issue. If we jump onto the next slide, 55% of employers are saying that their business growth is being held back because they haven't got the right skills. We see it at the moment with particular roles that we try and hire for. It's quite difficult to find the right people. So there is a massive opportunity for your young people to join this industry and to bring those skills. I think one of the things that's interesting on here, though, a lot of the young people that have joined our industry and are working in the industry report falling into it. They say that digital careers were never mentioned at school. So it is interesting. Right now, the government is midway through a curriculum review, and the initial findings were published last week. And it is high priority through that curriculum review as well to look at digital in particular, and how we see it at the moment that a lot of teachers, when we say to them about our event, they'll bring their computer science students. They won't bring their English students, math students, all of their other subjects, because they're not seeing that as digital, but actually digital runs through everything. So there is a lot going on to fix this gap and to fix the inspiration gap, as I see it, to ensure that we're inspiring young people to know about the amazing careers. So although there's some scary numbers there, there's so much positivity, and I think your young people could be brilliant additions into the sector. We just need to make sure they feel inspired and know what routes to take. So I am now going to hand over to Amanda to talk about careers.
And thank you. And actually, I'm one of the people that's been spoken about so far. I fell into the role in digital. And I'm going to talk to you about the other things that come through our careers and the sorts of people who come into them as well. And I think Rachel's going to carry on that conversation after me. So next slide, please, Louise. And we are a very diverse culture within our industry. That's something that's very important to my heart. I'm neurodiverse, I'm autistic, I fell into it, and actually I've made a very good career in this by falling into the digital industry and using my autism as part of that, which I didn't know at the time was such a thing that I could build that strength in some of it. So if we look at ethnicity, we're very much about inclusive recruitment, and BIMA provides toolkits to all its members to make sure that we have inclusive recruitment, but also we have diversity council as part of BIMA to help our organisations who are members to really look at who we're recruiting and how we recruit. And we did a wellbeing survey. So our industry, when we look at our survey, over 60% of respondents rated their employer 7 out of 10 for supporting their personal well-being. And we see that across our organisations in terms of celebrating things like Mental Health Day and making sure that people really have those sorts of measures in place, and we're supporting them, or even menopause policies at the other end. The balance that we have in our lives as well within our organisations is critical in that mental health care that we focus on. Over 75% of respondents said that actually their organisations do support their well-being. And we see lots of things like private healthcare put in place, counselling put in place to support our employees. Say neurodiversity, over 14% of the population are neurodivergent, but actually over 20%, as much as 50% are neurodiverse. As I say, Rachel's going to talk about that much more, about our digital workforce. and our environment. We know we have a bigger carbon footprint, especially with the introduction of AI, but actually we work hard to offset and reduce this. And we have very much our open standards around those website builds. And if we move on, please. But if we look at what people enjoy about the industry when we ask them, we're creative and we're innovative. We drive a lot of what goes on, you see on TV, you see in the apps that you use, in the way that you use things every day. It's all digital, as it was touched upon earlier, and we are driving that behind some of the biggest brands in the world. We're a very dynamic and fast-paced environment. Things are changing constantly. We weren't talking about AI to the level we are 2 years ago, and here we are. Everybody has AI probably in their pockets on their phones now, just using ChatGPT or other apps. But actually, that means we're constantly learning and we're developing as well to keep up with that fast-paced environment. And as Becky alluded to around AI, my team, for example, in content management, what we're doing, we're becoming what they call prompt engineers and looking at how do you use AI to be absolutely create the content or drive that content change rather than actually using the systems manually that we used to before. We're always having to have that learning, and our organizations help that. But also the other big thing is we are collaborative. We're all from different companies. We work together to drive forward this industry and to make sure that the young people coming through have the opportunities in the careers. And if we move on, please. There's such a wealth of jobs. And one of the things I would say to all the parents on this today, the jobs that we have today won't be the jobs for when your children leave school. I can guarantee it, there will be new jobs that get created. And we see this because it is so fast paced. As I say, who would have thought 2 years ago that actually a prompt engineer would have been one of the jobs that perhaps your children could move into? Or even 10 years ago around cyber engineering and how big that is now, in that GCHQ have been hiring cyber expertise for a number of years now. But we have jobs for everybody in every skill, from strategy and analysis right through to account management, which means managing the client. If you have skills in all these different areas, we can welcome you into the digital industry. And coming back to what Becky said, it's not about the computer science kids all the time. So I didn't do computer science at school. I was very much into the arts and humanities. And I used my skills in maths and English to actually come into this industry. And more importantly, my eye for detail put me into a testing role. And that's how I developed my career, because I knew how to use systems. I was using them every day. And actually, my eye for detail meant that I could spot things that other people couldn't. Who would have thought there was a job in spot the difference? But actually, it's one of the tests we use to bring people into my organization because it's so critical in what we do. But the adverts you see out there, somebody's designed them. When you're looking at Google, somebody has made sure that, we've got the right optimization. And if we move on, please. And so really it's looking at, what do your students care about? What do your kids care about? Because actually we can find an opportunity in our industry for them. What are their strengths? But the key thing is, and Becky said again, doing this side hustle, keeping something on the side, because we have so many people who want to come through. We want them to do things in their own time and show their passion for this industry to give them the avenues in. And I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who's going to talk about where you can start next.
Hi, everyone. So before I introduce myself, have you lost me? No, it's just my screen stopped for a second. Love it when tech fails us. So covering where you'll start. So before I introduce myself, I'll just cover this first. So next screen. Sorry, that one. Sorry, you're right. So it's great to see, get excited about everything that you can do from a career point of view, and from the school curriculum point of view, they'll cover so much of what we're doing now. So the students will learn about coding and designing, etc. But there's loads of avenues that you can take. And so outside of what the curriculum's teaching your children, they can also go online and learn more. So here are some links for some sites that they can look into. So these are really great. All of 5 of these are brilliant resources. And I personally learned some code on Code Academy 15 years ago, and I've also spoken to our current tech team what our juniors are learning from. So this is actually what people in the industry are learning from, but also they start right from a beginning level. So I think it'll be really exciting if your children want to learn more, to go to some of these resources, and you can go to the BIMA Digital Day Resources Hub and find out a little bit more. Next page, there's also some great free online qualifications. So those other sites also give you qualifications, but these have got some really great recognized qualifications that if your children want to be doing this in the background of what they're doing at school, that would be great. I actually was just looking at HubSpot as research for today, and actually, because my role is having a little bit more marketing, I'm actually going to look at doing some of the courses because they're great, they're really informative, and so yeah, just championing anyone doing any of this outside of school. But the main reason I'm here to talk to you all today is about neurodiversity in the industry. So if I go to the next slide, thriving as a neurodiverse professional in the digital industry, that is how I feel. And I'm just going to go a little bit through my story about how I got there. So if I go to the next slide, I'm Rachel Sutherland. I'm the Director of Design and Accessibility Lead at an agency called Manifesto. And I am, when I was at school, I was labelled as lazy, and my reading age at 11 was a 7-year-old. And I really struggled at school, and I struggled to explain to people why I was struggling. And actually the diagnosis of being dyslexic, I'm dyspraxic, and I have a communication disorder. And having that diagnosis really helped me to communicate to my family what was going on. So I'm dyslexic because I read in pictures. I can't read phonetically. I'm dyspraxic because I have a communication disorder, which means I can understand new topics really well. I can find it quite hard to explain it to people, to explain my understanding essentially. And I have an awful working memory, which means if you try to give me directions, I'm going to get lost. So I can't hear a lot of information. I need to see it written down, and I know that's how I learn. And I know as parents, you might be hearing a lot of horror stories about neurodiversity. I have 2 brothers with ADHD. And when my brother got diagnosed as an adult, he was told that he was high functioning because actually he was a vice principal at a school, and that shouldn't be possible. But actually, it's complete nonsense. I work with COOs and MDs who have ADHD. I'm dyslexic. I'm surrounded by people who are neurodiverse, and we're thriving. And that's the truth. So if I go to my next slide, just to give you a bit of a background of how I got to where I am now. So when I was at school, I loved design and art. It's where I thrived. I was told I wasn't academic, so obviously I clung to design for dear life. But when you are at school, you to make the right decision about what degree you want to take, often you can have a foundation year, so a gap between you before university, where you try all the different things that the a degree could cover. So you do photography, illustration, graphic design, jewelry design, and you cover so many topics so that you make an informed decision. So I went to university and I did graphic design, which I knew I wanted to do. And my first job was a graphic designer. I was illustrating, I was doing brands, I was creating the brand for events and thriving. But what I didn't like about the industry were the deadlines. And when I would send something to print, if there was a spelling mistake because of me, the anxiety it created it wasn't worth it. It was just creating too much stress. And when I went to get my second job, I actually found that everyone wanted me to be able to code, and that was really scary. But I took the plunge and I took my next role and I became a web designer. So stepping a little bit away from graphic design, and became a web designer. And actually what I was doing was I worked in a small agency, and I would design a website and then I would code the website. And I just love that break from a subjective thing, which is designing, into coding, which is you're right or you're wrong. And I just love that break and using both sides of my brain. And I really thrived, and that anxiety level went right down because it didn't matter if there was a spelling mistake, you just changed the text in the back end and it's fine. And so that really suited me. And what I found as an adult is that I have created coping mechanisms so that I'm not sad or worried about being dyslexic or dyspraxic. So I am very organized with my time. I use Speechify for reading documents. Not that I can't read, my reading age is actually much higher than it used to be. It's actually completely normal, but I just, as a dyslexic person, seeing a wall of text is completely daunting. So I use things like Speechify to just take that stress away. We have Grammarly and ChatGPT that help me make my text sound more, when I'm anything written, sound much more professional. And so I don't need to worry about how I sound if I don't explain something well to a client now. There are ways to get around those things. And I'm honest when I don't want to do something, or if I don't thrive in that area, I just don't see the point. And so I don't. And that's what's great about the digital industry, sorry. So what's also great is that the sector is a safe space, as we've sort of covered already, and Amanda covered earlier. So what we mean by that is, as she said, there's 15% of the UK on average are neurodiverse, and we're working in an area where 20 to 50% of the people we're working with are neurodiverse. So we're in good company. It doesn't matter if you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, we're all working together and it feels like a safe space. There's strength in being neurodiverse because we're creative problem solvers. We have hyper focus. It all works really well. And at Manifesto is just a really good example where we have a ERG, which is a employee resource group. And I just wanted to read the mission of that group within my agency, which is to build a safe space, safe and supportive community that enables all neurotypes to thrive, increase awareness, understanding and acceptance of all neurodivergent people and their needs at Manifesto, to encourage peer support, provide guidance and advocate for any changes that improve the working lives of neurodiverse from both top down and bottom up. And so you can see that we're in a great place. So me now, I am the lead. I lead a UX and creative team. When I first got into the industry and I was a designer, I thought, okay, but that's all I can be. And when I became a design manager, I said, okay, but that's all I can be. And actually now I'm the director of design and I don't think that way anymore. I'm also an accessibility lead. So I take my own learnings from how it is to work in digital, and I actually work with my whole agency to make sure that digital is accessible to everyone, and one barrier is neurodivergence. I was the neurodiversity chair. As I said, we sort of switch that around every year. But when I was the neurodiverse chair, I created these about me, which you'll see in the top corner, about me documents, so that you could circulate with that within your team. And it was about educating your team about how you work well. I work well. Working late, that's just me. I'm going to work after this. And so making sure that people are aware of how you like to work. And actually, I've managed to work with some incredible clients, some that you'll see at the bottom of the screen. And then finally, just to cover some takeaways that I hope you take away from this talk, is to advocate for your child's needs. You know, if they are not enjoying the noise of a classroom, what can we do? You know, is it those loop headphones? I learned from writing lots of notes. Is it a digital notepad that they need? And just making sure that you're supporting, because quite often at school it's one size fits all, and actually that's not all neurodiverse people learn. Encourage learning beyond school, so some of those resources that we shared earlier, you know, get them excited, because it might be that at school they don't feel supported or going in the right direction. And foster self-advocacy. You know, that about me can be done by anyone at any stage, so your child can actually educate their teachers on how they like to learn. So learn how they like to learn, and teach others is really important. Thank you. And I will pass on to Hannah.
Thank you. So This is me, Hannah-Natalie. I run Consume Comms, and I'm going to share a little bit about my journey over the last 20 years. So I am talking about going from the days of print through to now running my own digital business, constantly evolving career. Next slide, please. So following on from Becky, I am also a Kent native. I had aspirations when I was at school to be something creative and practical, interior designer, visual merchandising, something like that. But a last minute choice led me to Leicester to study design management, which was a course that really was about delivering physical solutions, career pathways into fashion, advertising, print media, and architecture. I never really settled on any one of those, so I ended up continuing my studies and doing marketing. Still at that point, marketing was very much about research and data and those sorts of things, and it wasn't until I graduated that Facebook launched, which I think is, in my opinion, a blessing that I missed all that. And then things started to change as I was kind of coming to the end of that course, and there was more focus on websites and directory listings. And alongside Facebook, we had Twitter and LinkedIn, which takes me to my next slide, when I realized that to continue this, continue progressing and being able to move in my career, I needed to get to grips with digital platforms and understand how I would be able to take my experience of marketing and the research and take that online and be able to support the businesses that I was working for. So over the course of 10 years, those skills that I developed and the experiences that I had being at the beginnings of those social media networks allowed me to move into different sectors, because every one of those businesses needed the same thing. They needed to get in front of their customers. So I had opportunities. I started in financial services. I went into engineering. I worked with telecoms. And then that took me through 10 years to this point when I started Consume Comms. So I've been self-employed for nearly 10 years now. That kind of resilience that I built in a constantly evolving sector allowed me to be confident enough that I would start my own business. And I've had opportunities to work nationally, internationally, been able to take my job and go travel and work and do the digital nomading, and take breaks out, extended breaks out, and still be able to run a business. I've worked with some really great brands and really well-known businesses, and all of that is powered by social networking, running big scale events. So the kind of things that we work on will be anything from events through to websites, through to branding, logistics, all powered by digital platforms. So my career has really allowed me to move to new cities, work with big brand names, and also find communities and meet people in person as well. So that's me. I'll pass on to Alan.
Hey everyone. So my name's Alan Thomas, and I'm the lead front-end developer at NetSell. We're a digital agency based in St. Albans, but I started off in Merthyr Tydfil with an interest in an unrelated field. Next slide, please. So I completed my BA in animation in 2007. The first year of my degree involved me barely touching anything digital. I was drawing, and a lot, using traditional media, and only touching the computer to photograph my drawings into a sequence. So from my second year, I had the opportunity to work in some digital fields. I already had an interest in digital media, making cartoons, games, and videos in my own time, but I was able to learn how to properly put these digital tools into the best practice ready for a career in animation. Next slide, please. So I became well-versed in Flash, and if anyone remembers it, it was a way of creating rich media experiences for TV, web, and anywhere else digital media could be consumed. But I made a good start into my career, specializing in drawing in Flash, but learned I could get more work and more money if I knew how to make interactive games in Flash as well. So I took jobs where I could develop my coding skills alongside drawing. But by this point in my career, Flash had already started to lose its dominance. Apple had stopped supporting it on its increasingly popular iPhone. And there was a decline in demand for these skills. But digital being a broad spectrum, Flash is demise didn't necessarily mean the demise of my career. So I could pivot what I had learned coding in Flash to other areas. So I started to develop my skills in web and mobile app technologies instead. And it was web that really took hold for me and has become my passion. So I've worked my way through different levels to now being a lead, where I'm managing 4 permanent staff members in a growing business, working with leading clients in their fields across multiple sectors, and developing the digital needs on the Optimizely digital experience platform. Next slide, please. So where I am now may be different to where I envisaged my career going, but I'm happy and fulfilled in my career. But that doesn't mean I've stopped having to develop as well. AI is redefining what businesses and individuals are capable of. It's a really exciting time where I get to explore new technology that has the potential to greatly improve output, not just my own, but the company I work for and the industry as a whole. My career has been one of embracing these opportunities and recognizing how I need to change to succeed in a digital career. The foundations I learned at school through uni and then have built upon through multiple jobs has taught me that learning doesn't ever end, and that a career in digital will always present opportunities to those who will embrace them. That's it from me. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your input there. That was really interesting. I just want to open this section up for some questions and hopefully some answers. So if anyone's got any questions, please pop them into the chat box that you'll see. While you're rushing to ask all our panelists some questions, I just wanted to ask, do you have to go to university to work in the digital industry? Becky, can I come to you on that?
You may indeed. I was already ready because I was like, no. So I run 2 digital agencies and events business, and I'm now doing the bits with the government on the digital skills. And I did not go to university. I did my A-levels, and then I got out there and just started working. I really advocate for finding the right path for you. So for some people, uni is perfect, and they will go and they will learn, and they will learn some amazing other skills as well as whatever their course is in how to live on their own and how to make new friends, etc. But there's apprenticeships as fantastic routes. We're seeing a lot more people going down the route of apprenticeships. They are hard to come by sometimes, so especially with the big businesses that have limited numbers, but it's a fantastic route and something to look into. But my own personal experience was I got out there and started working, and I found what I loved. And I think the thing that stood out to me was at the point that a lot of my friends were finishing university, I was already earning more than they could earn because I'd got that life experience and that experience in roles, and I'd really found what I wanted. Whereas almost they were, as much as they had a bit of a boost in their starting salaries because they had the university experience, they didn't have the on-the-job experience. So one thing we do a lot with students that are doing placement years, or we do a lot of internships, and I would say if your child would like to go to university, taking a route where there's either a placement year or really looking at what kind of work experience they can get alongside the degree will really help them stand out at the next stage, because otherwise they've had that gap and they lack some of those skills that you learn from being in the workplace. But there is a route for everyone.
Thank you, Becky. We've had a question from Michelle. Where is the best place to find an apprenticeship in this sector? Hannah, I know you were you helped with apprenticeships for BIMA at some stage, didn't you? Sorry to put you on the spot. If any of the other panelists want to answer this, you're very welcome. But Hannah, have you got any advice as to where this parent could help their student find apprenticeships?
Yeah, I was going to say, in my experience, I've had a few apprentices come through, and actually the job centre, your local job centres will have a careers service, and they can advise. Also, the local council should also have some information about apprenticeships, and you can find support that way as well. Also, you can find various apprenticeship type opportunities. We have Sharp Futures up here, so they run opportunities for, I think, 16 to 24-year-olds. So there'll be similar sorts of organisations that support that across the nation, I think.
There's also, just to add, on apprenticeships.gov is like the government's website that a lot of businesses will list their apprenticeships through there, and a lot of the apprenticeship providers will market through there as well. So a little bit of Googling and searching, and you can find the opportunities.
Brilliant, thank you. Julian, you didn't really talk about yourself very much. So what is a creative director? What do you do?
So my job is to work with designers and copywriters, and to liaise with the client. So I work in a marketing agency, and as we've discussed here, one of the roles there is for people to liaise with the clients and understand what they need, and then that sort of gets turned into strategic advice. And then we make ads. It used to be, when I first started this, we used to do ads in print, in magazines, on the TV. And of course, now that digital channels have permeated every aspect of our lives, we've changed to that as well. And so, I was thinking as I was listening here about not just what I enjoy about my job there, as I said, it's working with talented individuals and helping them get the best out of those talents, but also the endless variety that I've been privileged to experience since I started, so from pet food to Meals on Wheels, cars, cloud computing, not cloud computing, food, drink, like every sort of aspect of our lives has been an opportunity for me to do some professional work on it, and it's been fantastic. And yeah, I really love. So if any of you or your children are drawn to creativity, and this is the theme of tonight, right? It's not about your digital capability or understanding right now. There will be a role for your talent in it. It's just that you have to bear in mind that there will be increasing digital components to it. Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Louise.
you. We've had a question from Emily. What about the games industry, such as character design? Would you recommend this as a career path?
I would take this one. So, actually, here in Liverpool, in the north, the games industry is absolutely huge. So, we have a lot of character design, game design courses. My nephew is actually at Manchester Met at the moment, taking this very course. And it's a huge opportunity to come into the gaming industry. So, we have, as I say, lots of different gaming companies all over. And this is a really good path. Gaming parents who are listening, gaming really is part of our industry and is not just something people do in their bedrooms. It's an absolutely huge career for students coming through into this industry. It's a really serious career with huge opportunities. I know people who are seniors in PlayStation, for example, who've come through traditional routes and then joined this industry and never left it in the gaming industry. And it is a really big industry in the UK for people to join with serious careers and really good pay, can I say, coming into it. So, as much as your kids might say they're doing something on Unity and things like that in their bedrooms, honestly, please support it because, again, we talked about the digital skills gap Becky mentioned. We need this to keep our gaming industry in the UK thriving, and especially up here in the north in Liverpool.
And just to build on that, I'm jealous because, of course, I'm looking on LinkedIn at any new jobs that might be tempting for me. And there's so many creative directors of game design that I'm like, because it's not for me anymore. So I really kind of wish I had, but it's pure creativity. It's I think, and as I say, I'd say most of the jobs that I see coming up now offered to me on LinkedIn do have some gaming component.
And even for marketing. So even if you're not going into like the PlayStation or EA or whatever, marketing, we gamify things in our organizations. So if you look at Duolingo, that is a game, right? So you've got all of these things that are games that are not perhaps in the gaming industry. So having that background can open so many doors, especially in marketing as well. We're often talking to our clients about how we gamify some of their marketing. So if you look at some of the campaigns out there, they're all around gamification. So if you've actually taken this route and you're going down this route, the world is your oyster, I'll be honest. And around moving abroad, they're moving people from all over the world to join these organizations who have these skills as well if you want to travel.
Thank you. So kids playing games in their bedroom is not a waste of time. It's a potential career. Good to know. Alan, you mentioned earlier about AI and the importance of AI. So AI is not going to take all our jobs. Is that not true?
Absolutely not. It's creating jobs, if anything. I think it was touched on with other people as well about prompt engineers. It's there to support anyone at any level. So we've got juniors in our company who are using it to ask questions because it might be that seniors too busy to help them. We might be using it to write tests for us, to just explain someone else's code for us. And that's just within the actual delivery of the websites that we're building as well. We can see like on this, there's an AI note taker for us as well, that Hannah has. They can do those mundane things. I think Becky touched on as well. They're allowing us and freeing us to be able to do what we most enjoy at work as well. They can really help reduce the amount of gaps in like people's abilities as well. We got designers now who are able to spin up quick prototypes of the work they do in by putting their designs into things like V0 and other website builders, so that they can show what they are, the kind of user experience journey that they're looking for as well. So it's to fill in your own gaps as well. Like I'm able to quickly throw together perhaps a prototype or a design as well with just a few prompts and not having to bother the designers in my team. So it's really all about increasing productivity and output and filling in what you don't already know.
Thank you, Alan. Becky, last week, the week before, you held Aspiration Digital, which you touched on earlier on. I know during that event there were lots of questions all about work experience, and that's something we haven't touched on. BIMA is shortly going to introduce a work experience platform, so we will be offering work experience across the country with different agencies that want to give students that opportunity. In your experience, where is the best place to find work experience, and how important is that for students?
Great question. And it really was a hot topic at the event. And it's great that BIMA are launching a platform, because actually trying to centralize this will really help. I would say at the moment, some of the best ways and some of the best advice that came out of Aspiration Digital was for students to get on LinkedIn, to start setting up their LinkedIn profiles, to start building up following, so themselves following people that are doing jobs that they would like to do. But also starting to follow companies and starting to post some things about types of work they're doing, projects they might be doing, etc. But actually going and finding those companies and doing some research on companies that you think, that looks like somewhere I'd love to work. I wonder if I can get work experience there. If you don't ask, you don't get. And being able to feel confident to reach out to people on LinkedIn, find the right person. I think the main advice we were giving was that the worst that will happen is you'll get ignored. But actually, there's nothing bad about that. You just move on and send another message. It's a bit of a numbers game. But actually being able to get out there, ask questions, do a bit of research and put forward why you'd be interested. One of the best techniques we've seen, and it's worked for people getting work experience with us, is to send a little 2-minute video. A lot of young people are really confident on creating videos on their phones, etc. Creating a little 1 minute, 2 minute to say, I've done my research on your company. I think it could be where I'd love to work. Is there any chance I can have a day's work experience, a week's work experience, whatever they can give? And actually that ability to stand out is just phenomenal. At the other end as well, at the point that they're looking more for internships, we were in a position where every year we do particular internships with the university, and we don't normally look for other students, but we had someone come through our contact us page on our website, and they had branded a portfolio all in our colors, and they had created this 10-page document, which probably wasn't too dissimilar to ones they were sending to others, but they'd made the effort, they'd put our brand on it, and they'd said how much they wanted an opportunity and how much they would get from it, but also what we would get from them, and skills that they'd gained and what they thought they could bring to us through an internship. Well, that was probably 5 years ago, and Ellen submitted that through, and I said, we cannot not speak to this person. She came in for the interview, and she now works for us. She's now moved through her career. She's now a growth manager working with our clients. She's one of our brightest people doing amazing work, and that was all because she took a chance, but she made a way of grabbing our attention. And I think that's the thing. There's so many people looking for these opportunities. So it's how can you stand out, and how can you create something either through video, through visual, through how you apply to get ahead and make sure that you get noticed.
We've just had a question in the chat about the age of the ideal work experience and the youngest age where you could take part in work experience.
So we have students as young as 14, 15, where it's ranged through the school. They've got all the right processes in place. We've got the right checks in place that we do internally. Yeah, I think it's finding the right businesses that have got the right relationships with schools that have put everything in place to make sure the safeguarding's there for the students, and to make sure also it's all set up correctly so that the parents feel safe where the students have gone for the day, etc. And I would definitely advocate for, when we do work experience, especially if we've got younger students coming in, we invite them to come in for come in for a cup of tea or a glass of water a couple of weeks ahead of when the work experience starts, so that it's not as daunting, the thought of, oh my word, I've got to go to this workplace and I don't know what to expect. And we normally take them in groups of 2 or 3, so that also even if they're from different schools, they've got someone else to bounce off of. But that's something you could definitely ask and say, look, we've booked this work experience. Could my child come in early to come and meet the team, to just make it a bit less daunting? So yeah, that's definitely helped us.
Thank you, Becky. We've had a question in the Q&A. If a student hasn't done well in academia and hasn't achieved the expected standards, will they still be able to get into companies and work in this sector? Rachel, do you want to take this one? Because you mentioned that you didn't love school and yet you have an incredibly impressive career.
Yeah, I think it depends. You know, people aren't necessarily looking at the qualifications like they used to, like, not in my opinion. You know, if someone's applying for me because I'm in a creative role, I'm going to be looking at their portfolio. So if that's singing but they got a D in something, it doesn't matter too much. But that is probably an HR thing. I work in an agency where it has to go for an HR department, and I don't know what the screening process is, but if it came directly to me, it wouldn't be a problem. I can't answer whether, if your children didn't receive, you know, the right GCSEs, whether we could still hire. I'm sorry, I can't directly answer that question, and it looks like Becky can. But what I can answer is that if it in smaller agencies where there's not an HR who may or may not be filtering through those qualifications, it does go much more on the work that they're creating. And I gave the example of a creative, but if that's a developer, if they're sending through examples of their code and it's incredible, I don't see why it matters that they didn't get those right results. But yeah, please jump in, Becky.
I think you're completely right, and I would just say that it's more important to find a way to stand out if it's not going to be based on grades. Like, we try and pay less attention to that now anyway. We're looking for skills, we're looking for passion. There's a lot that we can help teach once someone joins the business, but it is a case of then how do you stand out, because it could be a HR team are doing some filtering and they go, oh, this person's not done particularly well. So it's what else can stand out? Is it a portfolio? Is it showing experience? Is it how you show through a little video that gets put with the CV to say how much you're interested in an opportunity? It's those ways to try and stand out and make sure that you're unignorable and that they have to have that conversation with you.
I think it's also fair to say that sometimes what the thing that you studied isn't necessarily the thing that you're going to end up working in. So they might have a change of direction, you know, something that they'd studied and really enjoyed, then they get the next big kind of digital platform or something that they really feel passionate about. But I definitely think in smaller agencies, for sure, like mine, I'll employ people with enthusiasm over experience.
Yeah, I think from what I know about all of you, none of us actually work in the field that we first we first did and we were educated in. Amanda, I just want to come to you really briefly, just towards the end of the call. I opened up earlier today talking about BIMA's Digital Day, and that's where a lot of you are on the call because your children were involved in Digital Day and your school will have sent you the invite to this webinar. You've been involved in BIMA's Digital Day for about 12 years or something, maybe longer. Could you just give me just a few sentences on the importance of Digital Day and why you love being involved so much? Because I know that you do.
So for those who haven't taken part in Digital Day, what we do is we link in agency professionals and industry professionals with schools for a day in November every year to run through projects and to run a mini sort of agency, and we set people up to give them the experience and run through the process that we take as organizations in delivering against a brief from a client. And we have some really exciting clients who come in and give us those. So we've had Burberry, for example, last year, who a lot of students wanted to take part in View Cinemas. So we have some big organizations who come in and give us briefs. So it's really important for students to get an idea of what they like and what they don't like around our industry, but actually where they fit. That's what we find at the end of it. The majority say we want to join the industry. We really enjoyed taking part in this collaborative workshop and coming up with ideas. And what they do is they find their feet in the different areas. So are they the ideas person? Are they the people who are drawing stuff? Are they the people who are project managing? Are they the people who are pitching their ideas? A bit like Dragon's Den at the end. And it's really successful to see these students come up with such inspirational ideas. That's why I love it. And I had one, I was with a Liverpool school last year who came up with an idea for Burberry on a video that was of John Lewis level of almost like their Christmas ads, which actually reduced me to tears. It was so inspirational. And they only had a day to come up with it, and it was just wonderful. So it's those sorts of things that inspire me. And I still have a school that we had an ASC school win one year with Vodafone, who went down to Vodafone and actually mapped out their idea in virtual reality to try and take a virtual reality headset that would allow people who suffer with anxiety or who are neurodiverse and get overwhelmed by journeys into the high street. They came up with an amazing idea of how to deal with it. And this is why I get inspired, is because I can see our future talent who are going to work with all of us in future sitting in those digital day sessions.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, all of the speakers and the panelists, for coming along today. I hope that you participants have enjoyed the webinar. I hope you've learned something. If you want to know more, please look at bima.co.uk or contact me. I've put my details in the chat. Like I said before, the digital and creative tech industry is a wide open, inclusive, progressive, wonderful place for your children to work. Although some of it is just playing on games, it's not all just playing on games. There are 1,000,001 jobs. So please just listen to them if they say that they're interested in working to this sector, and just find support from either the links that were shared earlier or just from our website on the Resources Hub. I will close the webinar now, but thank you so much to everybody who took part, and we hope to see you and your students in the future working in the industry. Take care.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining. Bye.
Thanks.